today. Today we're going to be talking about the age of reason. Yes, that is right, the age of reason. And there are two things of the age of reason that we have to really dig deep into today, and that's what we're going to do on our show today. The first is going to be the role of government, and then it's going to be the economy. Yes, we know the economy is a hot button issue right now with the coronavirus and the stimulus and the bailout. Everything's going on. It's going to exactly connect to what we're dealing with today. So, who's going to be on the show today? We have, yes, the singing school board member coming to us straight via satellite from New Jersey. Okay, that's going to be really, really good. We're going to be doing the Sing a Tweet. You haven't seen it yet, but you're going to love it. Also, we're going to be doing French food or economic theory. My own mother's coming in on that one. Ooh, that's going to be really, really good. You do not want to miss it. And then we're going to be doing something that is going to be actually a little academic. And that is going to be, we're going to have an interview with a writer and a lawyer from Colorado Springs who's going to talk about John Locke and social media. I know it, exciting stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the age of reason. So why and how did we get to the age of reason? The age of reason began because of two things. The weakening of the Catholic Church and the increasing influence of the individual on society. That is right. We are ditching conformity and we are dealing with individuality. How did that come to be? Well, it started in this little time period called the Renaissance, right? When humanism comes around. And what is humanism? Humanism is going to be when human beings find the answer themselves and they don't look to a higher power. So what happens is, during the Renaissance, throughout the Reformation, flashback, what's the Reformation? Yes, that is when folks like Martin Luther, John Calvin, they decide to protest the Catholic Church, and specifically the power of the Pope. Again, putting power and influence on who? The individual. So we have this budding and this boiling of individuality that is just basically festering throughout all of Europe. And it really hits its peak with the Age of Reason, when everybody says, you know what, we don't need a king, we don't need a pope, because we got our mind. And from this point on, Europe is now struggling. How will it govern? Does it govern with one king, or will it govern through the will of the people? And this is all possible because of what happened in the Middle Ages, in the Renaissance, in the Reformation, and so forth. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Our big players here are going to be John Locke, because John Locke, he has a big idea about how government should be. He thinks that government of the people, by the people, right? He believes that people should give up just a little bit of their rights in order to protect life, liberty, and property. But he does not believe in one king or one monarch. Who does believe in one king and one monarch? You better believe it. That's Tommy Hobbes. Our boy Thomas Hobbes is going to be a focus of the show today. So that brings us into economic theory. If government theory is going to focus on the individual, what do you think economic theory is going to focus in on? The individual. Prior to the Age of Reason, we had what is called mercantilism, right? That believes that a country must produce its own stuff. A country must produce all the goods it needs. Now, let's take, for example, if you have a country that makes a lot of cheese but doesn't do a lot of crackers very well, what are you going to do? You're going to make both cheese and crackers under mercantilism, because mercantilism is a zero-sum game. What do I mean by that? I mean that if I decide to trade with my country to the south, or country to the north, that means I'm giving them money for their product. So let's say that in Canada they make great crackers. Here in the US we make great cheese. You would think that I will trade them some cheese for some crackers, but in that exchange, Canada gets money. If Canada gets money, that means the US loses money. So mercantilism is about competition. It's about zero sum. So in mercantilism, the US would make both the cheese and crackers. But then capitalism starts to creep up. And that's when you would say that makes zero sense. So let's go ahead and trade for the crackers in Canada for the cheese in the US. We're going to talk all about that. And that's going to bring us back to Thomas Hobbes. So Thomas Hobbes, he believes that people act like this. Not the very best of humanity, right? But John Locke believed that people act like this. Really, two different views, right? So today we're going to kind of dig deep and figure out which worldview is right. Should we believe Hobbes? Should we believe Locke? Should we believe mercantilism or should we believe capitalism? We're going to discuss this, have a lot of fun on this very first episode of History Repeating. Be right back.
You worked too hard, you ate too much, the cheesecake made you greedy. Let your aching head and stomach hear this message from old Speedy. Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Those Speedy bubbles relieve your upset stomach and headache fast. For acid indigestion alone, Alka-Seltzer Gold. Oh, what a relief it is. What a relief.
Welcome back to History Repeating, and my name is Joe Murray, your host, and we're going to talk a little bit about Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. Both men were very good intellectual thinkers of the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason, but both men had two very different worldviews. So let's talk about John Locke. John Locke, he kind of came up with the Glorious Revolution in England. That, of course, is where we had a complete changeover in power in England without a drop of bloodshed. That's huge during that time period because it didn't take much to spill blood back in the early 1600s, 1500s. They actually loved to spill blood. So John Locke, what he really thought was that people are inherently good and people are going to want to protect themselves. He believed in something called the state of nature. Now, what is the state of nature? No, it's not walking at the Grand Canyon or going to see Old Faithful. The state of nature is what all humanity is in before we have a government. So John Locke said, you know what? If we're in the state of nature, that could be tricky. Why is it tricky? Because let's say yours truly is just walking about in the state of nature with a bag of gold. And let's just say a linebacker happens to be walking down the same road. That linebacker wants my gold. Who do you think's going to win that? Not me. So the linebacker just claps me over the head, takes my gold, and off he goes. What would stop that? The police. What do we need for the police? The government. So John Locke says, you know what? We need to enter into an agreement with our government that we will create a government that will be ruled by the people with the consent of the people, and the government only has three functions: to protect our life, to protect our liberty, and to protect our possessions, thus my gold. Now, Tommy Hobbes, on the other hand, he didn't like that. He says people are inherently nasty and brutish. Given the opportunity, people will take advantage of you, they will steal from you, they will do all sorts of nasty things to you. So he wrote a book called The Leviathan that said the only way you could have a real, true, safe government is if you have one absolute ruler, and that ruler would be the king. So that brings us to our next segment, which is going to be our top 10. Alrighty, so now we're going to do our top 10 reasons you would not invite Thomas Hobbes to a dinner party. Let me get them out right here. Hold on one second. Alrighty, reason number 10. He'd never stop talking about mythical sea creatures. Alrighty, reason number 9. He'd make everyone sign a social contract before they could enter his house. Reason 8. He always brags that his house is better than yours. Oh, this is one. If you did not follow his seating chart, he'd have you executed. Number 6. He would tell you what to eat and what not to eat. Number 5. He never lets anyone use the restroom. Ooh. Number 4. All the steaks must be cooked well done. Number 3. He's always checking your pockets to make sure you did not steal the silverware. Well, that. Number 2. He would hoard all the food. All right, the number one reason, drum roll please, why you would not go to Thomas Hobbes' dinner party, and that is, he is constantly telling you that you are selfish, and oh boy. All right. Okay, so that is our top 10 list, our very first top 10 list here on History Repeating. Let's just dig a little deeper. If you noticed, the list 1 through 3 had a lot to do with how basically Tommy Hobbes viewed humanity. Our number one reason we don't go to his dinner party is what? He thinks that we're brutish, nasty, and selfish, and he'd always be telling us that. Believe me, that would not be pleasant. It might lead to some indigestion. The other thing is, let's remember number 3. If I'm not mistaken, you never know. The memory is the second thing to go. Number 3 was he'd be checking your pockets for stolen silverware. That is really kind of an awkward situation. But why would he do that? Because he believes that people put their self-interest before any other. So that is why we looked at those first top 3. Number 4 through 8, what did that talk about? Wouldn't let you go to the restroom, wouldn't let you eat certain things, would have to have your steak done a certain way. Why would that be related to Thomas Hobbes? Easy, because he believed in absolutism. Flashback, what's absolutism? It is the belief that one ruler, one person, or one set of rulers has the ability to control everyone else. They believe that's the best way to do it, right? It kind of minimizes disagreements if you only have one guy calling the shots. And then finally, I mentioned something about him having to sign a social contract before you enter his house, because in his book, The Leviathan, he actually develops a social contract. Now, Johnny Locke, of course, is going to take that social contract and do something completely different with it, but for Hobbes, he's really the first guy that does that. And that leads us to Leviathan, and that would be the top 10, number 10, which is he's always droning on and on and on about those mythical sea creatures, because that is exactly what a Leviathan is. And why would he name his book a Leviathan? Because the government, the power of the government is a Leviathan. It's all powerful and it's all encompassing. It will devour everything in sight. So it's only fitting that Hobbes would name his book Leviathan. Alrighty, well, we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we are going to be doing a new segment called French Food or Economic Theory. You don't want to miss that. Come right back.
Eddie, this is Mrs. Butterworth. Hello, Eddie. I love your syrup. I make 2 syrups, regular and light. Mrs. Butterworth. And they're both delicious
Because they're thick and rich and buttery.
she really talks better than you.
Mrs. Butterworth's is twice as thick as maple syrup, so it pours slower. And it's made with grade A butter. Mrs. Butterworth's, regular and light.
Alrighty, welcome back to History Repeating. I am your host, Joe Murray, and what we're going to be doing now is a new fun segment, which I call French Food or Economic Theory. And to help me go through this segment is probably an all-star. She is a huge Patriots fan, and I owe her pretty much everything because she is my mother. So welcome to the show, Evie Murray.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see you, Mom.
Nice to meet you, Joe.
Alrighty, so, you and I tend to have some fun in the kitchen, do we not?
It depends if I'm allowed in the kitchen.
That's going back to my kids out there. I'm kind of an absolute ruler in the kitchen, and so is Mom. So when you have 2 absolute rulers in the kitchen, we know what happens with that. But we're going to be playing something called French Food or Economic Theory. Are you thrilled?
I'm so excited.
I'm sure you are. So here's how this game will work. I am going to read you a word in French, and you will tell me if you think it is food or economic theory. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure?
I'm ready.
All right, so let me dig into my treasure trove of words. All right, now this first one should be pretty easy.
Oh, God. This is where I look stupid.
Okay, we started off pretty easy. Hors d'oeuvre.
Oh, that is easy. That is food.
Okay, bonus, do you know what it means?
It's like an appetizer.
Oh! Ding, 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 ding. All right, she's got through the first one. Okay, food or economic theory? Laissez-faire.
Uh-oh. That's a tough one. I'm going to say economic theory.
And I would have to say that you are correct! She is now 2 for 5. Alrighty, ding, 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 ding. Alright. I think we're going to be pretty easy on this one.
It would have been easier if you let me see them beforehand.
Well, that would not be fun, is it? I'll tell you what, that would be fun. Do you think that would be fun out there? We don't think that would be fun. Alright, here we go. Escargot.
Ah, that's easy.
What is it? Alright, food. What is it?
It's a snail.
It is. It's what's for dinner tonight. Escargot. There we
Not
go.
for me.
All right, here we go. We're getting a little bit harder now. All right, we're getting a little bit harder. Moutarde glace. Moutarde glace. Moutarde glace.
Would you put that in a sentence, please?
I just read moutarde glace.
Okay. Economic theory?
All right, that is actually mustard ice cream.
Ew.
Alrighty, last one.
Okay.
If you get this one right, I don't punish you. If you get this one wrong, I punish you. Here we go. Main visible.
Would you put that in a sentence, please?
I just said main visible.
Would you spell that, please?
M-A-I-N space V-I-S-I-B-L-E. Main visible.
Well, we've had all the food, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say economics.
You're right! It's economic theory! That is called the invisible hand. So let's give her a round of applause. Alrighty, Mom. Well, that is it for right now. Thank you for stopping by.
Sing a song?
Next episode, that will be episode 2 of History Repeating. See you later now. Give me a hug. There we go. Alright, so we're going to go over a few of these words that we just went over. Well, we obviously don't have to go over mustard ice cream, but we are going to go over the invisible hand. Now, Adam Smith is the one who came up with the invisible hand. And it's not something out of the Addams family, I promise you that. It's not something like this. What it is it is a force in the marketplace that is going to move people and goods that will help supply and demand. So let me give you an example. Oh, we have a new guest coming on right now. This is, come on up here. This is our dog, Mr. Bojangles. And he is my stellar student, even though he likes to bark a lot. Right, Bo? Yeah? Is that right? Uh-huh. So you want to help me go over some economic theory? He loves economic theory, right? He loves it. So we're going to let him sit down for a second while we talk about the invisible hand. So what is the invisible hand? Let's say that I open up a bread shop, and I'm charging $1 a loaf. There is no other bread shop around, right? None around. I can not only charge $1 a loaf, but does my bread have to be good? No, it doesn't, because there's no competition. Right? There's no competition. I can make the worst bread known to man, but I'm the only guy in town, right? You're going to buy my bread. But then intern Chris, who you're going to be meeting in a little bit, he opens up a bread shop, and he is selling his bread for 50 cents a loaf, and his bread is better quality. Where are the people in the town going to go? They're going to go to intern Chris, unless I'm an absolute ruler and I have them all executed. But in this example, I am not. So why are they going to intern Chris? Cheaper price, better quality. That is the invisible hand. It will move people to meet supply and demand. So how do I compete? If I still keep my bread $1 and my bread is garbage, will anybody buy my bread? No. So that means I go bankrupt and out of business. The only way I compete is if I make my bread better and cheaper than intern Chris, which I'll do. So anyway, that is the invisible hand. So that is what we're talking about with the invisible hand. All right, Beau is kind of bored right now, so he is leaving. So let's finish up with laissez-faire. That is basically French for let go. And what that means is that the government has zero control in the economy. That is completely different from what I talked about in the monologue, which is mercantilism, where the government has a greater control in the economy because it wants all the goods made here in the United States or whatever country we're talking about. So laissez-faire is more of a free-flowing idea of get government out of the way, let business be business, and let the invisible hand guide supply and demand. So I hope you understand that segment. We're going to have a short break, and when we get back, it's my new favorite segment, that you're going to love and might have somebody soaking wet. That is Sing a Tweet. We'll be right back.
All Out is the only way you go. And it earns you the rewards of success. Naturally, that includes the car you drive. Distinctive, elegant. Seville goes all out to achieve your high goals for luxury travel. Drive the 1985 Seville, the car for those who, like you, choose to go first class all the way.
Best of all, it's a Cadillac.
Welcome back to History Repeating. I am your host, Joe Murray. I am now joined by Bandit, another one of our furry canine friends. And we are now at our next segment, which is one of my favorites. It is Sing a Tweet. Now, I'm not going to be the one singing. We actually have a school board member from the great state of New Jersey who is going to be singing those tweets for us. And to answer those tweets, now he doesn't know this yet, and I'm sure he will now because he's waiting in the wings, is our very good friend, intern Chris, who is our cameraman and everything else around this show. And he is going to have to listen to 5 tweets that are going to be sung by our school board singer. And then he's going to guess. I'll give him a choice, 2 choices. And he has to tell me who would have written that tweet. And if he misses more than 2, let's just say he's going to be all wet. So let's bring to the stage right now, intern Chris. Welcome, intern Chris. Here you go. I am so glad that you are here and on to the show. Are you ready to play this wonderful game?
I think so.
Okay, well, let's get this thing going. What we're going to do right now is, I think we got to, let me make sure I'm hearing in my ear right now. Okay, our school board singer, Louise, she is all ready. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to go real quick, and we're going to have school board singer Louise sing our first tweet. Take it away, Louise.
To the state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone, and reason, which is at law, teaches all mankind who will but consult it, that being equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, or liberty, or possession.
Marvelous, simply marvelous job. So now, intern Chris, I know all that wonderful singing has just kind of overwhelmed your senses. Who would have written that tweet? John Locke or Thomas Hobbes?
No idea. We're going to go with John Locke.
That is unfortunately correct! Boo! Alright, let's see. Alright, over here, yep. Our school board singer is ready. She is ready to sing our second tweet. Take it away, Louise.
Hereby it is manifest that during the time men live without a common power, to keep them all in awe, they are in that condition which is called war, and such a war is as of every man against every man.
Well, I tell you what, that is going to be Grammy-worthy performances right there, I think. I think you're seeing history made right here. Is that Thomas Hobbes or Queen Elizabeth I?
We'll go with Queen Elizabeth.
Hobbes, all right. So you're now down 1. He can only get 1 more wrong before he gets, of course, the bucket of ice water. So let's get to our third tweet. Are you ready, school board singer Louise? Take it away.
We don't make mistakes, we just have happy accidents.
All right, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Would that have been Adam Smith or Bob Ross?
And actually, no, this one is Bob Ross.
Woo-hoo! Alrighty, he's got it right. So now we're down to our last 2. If he gets them both wrong, he might be all wet. Alrighty, let's see what happens. Take it away, take it away, school board singer Louise.
by preferring the support of domestic to that of foreign industry. He intends only his own security, and by directing that industry in such a manner as its produce may be the greatest value, he intends only his own gain, and he is only in this, as many other cases, led by an invisible hand to promote an end to which was no part of his intention.
Alrighty, wonderful job again, wonderful job again. All right. Is that going to be Thomas Aquinas or Adam Smith?
That sounds like Thomas Aquinas.
He got it wrong, ladies and gentlemen. We are still in the running for a drenching. Woohoo! Alright, it all comes down to this. Are you ready? Intern Chris.
I am not, but let's go ahead.
Let me give it away to our school board singer, Louise. Take it away, Louise.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna turn around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.
Is that Lionel Richie or Rick Ashley?
Rick Ashley.
Oh, he got it right. He is now safe from the drenching of Sing a Tweet. All right, well, you will join us back in a few moments when we will go over these tweets and get to our interview. We'll be right back.
What's going on?
Well, we ordered a gift online, and we really need to do something with it. I'm just not sure what.
What is it? Well, just return it. Returning gifts is easier than ever with priority mail flat rate boxes from the Postal Service. If it fits, it ships anywhere in the country for a low flat rate. Plus, I can pick it up for free.
Perfect, because we have to get that out of this house.
Come on, it's not that big. Oh, yeah, that's got to go.
Priority mail flat rate shipping starts at $4.95, only from the Postal Service. A simpler way to ship and return.
Welcome back to History Repeating. Again, I'm your host, Joe Murray. And I want to go over a little bit of the tweets that we just heard. We're not going over the Rick Ashley tweet or the Bob Ross tweets. I know you all got this. But let's first go over the Adam Smith tweet. Let's go ahead and put that up on the screen. So what was the giveaway that this was Adam Smith? Simple, The Invisible Hand, because Adam Smith wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. It is probably the biggest, the best economic book that has ever been written. You definitely going to want to read it sometime in your academic career. And it pretty much lays out how capitalism should work. And in that, what we talked about earlier, the clue was Invisible Hand. That was what should have been your clue, that it was Adam Smith, okay? Because remember what that invisible hand does. It guides the marketplace. Alrighty, let's look at our next one. That was by John Locke. Let's put up John Locke's tweet right now. All right, what was the big clue about John Locke, right? When you see that tweet, what would have been the big clue? And it would have been two things. The state of nature. Remember we talked about that in the monologue. The state of nature is where all men are without government. But number two is that he considers all men equal, and we join together to protect what? Life, liberty, and property. So he believes in the goodness of human beings, and he believes that human beings will come together to protect those things. All right, our last tweet we're going to look at is that of Thomas Hobbes. Let's get Hobbes' tweet up on the board or on the screen. So what would have been Hobbes' giveaway? What would have been the thing that would take it away from taken it away that it was Hobbes? And that would have been a state of war and needing to be in awe of one ruler. Okay, because remember, Hobbes believed that you had to have absolute control in order to keep all those nasty tendencies of the people in check. People won't be nasty if they know there is a king that could potentially kill them. All right, well, welcome back to History Repeating. I am your host, Joe Murray, and I am joined with a very, very special guest, Miss Lauren Hugg. How are you doing, Lauren?
Good, how are you?
Good. Well, I know you are a attorney, you are an author, you are a social media guru, you are pretty much everything that's good with humanity. So I'm so glad I am so glad you're on the show. So, Lauren, knowing that you have a great familiarity with social media, we have been talking about John Locke, and we know he's credited with the social contract. So, Lauren, what do you think John Locke, if we were to transplant him and put him right back smack dab in the middle of 2020, what do you think he would think of stuff like Twitter, Instagram, when it comes to building a government and a social contract?
I think that he'd be a fan, honestly, because one of the biggest criticisms of the social contract theory is, when did we enter into this contract? When did I agree to these terms? Is it just because I got born into this society? So social media allows kind of a flattening of access to information, and to everybody gets their own voice, and they have their own broadcasting channels, so that people can engage with each other in a lot more ways than they could have at the time Locke was living. So I think he would have loved it, and would have thought that it would have made a more robust society of engagement and dialogue and discourse about figuring out what the terms of the social contract really are.
That's great. So, we see a lot of good with social media. We see a lot of information spread, a lot of education out there, and it really does help make people make informed decisions. What do you think Locke might have viewed as some of the quote unquote trolls that kind of linger out there on social media? Do you think that they threaten social media, or are they just kind of some rotten apples that we just have to deal with?
I think that those would be, the outliers in any society, right? That aren't quite aligning with social norms. So I think that trolls would be, there probably have to be rigorous controls or ways of dealing with them. I think that would have developed had social media existed during Locke's time. I think we're a little bit more, we are further removed from strong authoritarian governments, at least in the West right now, than at the time that Locke was writing. So it seems harder to us to say that we should ban trolls or do something with trolls that would have been very reasonable then. So I'm seeing that happen right now when we're trying to get together on how to do these things and how to live in a society that's sort of in a different state right now. A lot of entities are trying to figure out how to handle trolls. Yeah. And my advice is ban them at this point. Normally not, but right now, yes.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So, I know you wrote a great book, Digital Kindness, and I know it's available on Amazon and other places, and I'm going to make sure that people have a link to that at the end of our show. But when we talk about kindness, and we also talk about natural law, and this is going to be my last question, because I know you're tight on time, and I don't want to keep you. You have a very busy schedule. So when you think of natural law and social media, what is it in us that would probably compel us to be nicer rather than meaner? Do you think there's a component in us that does compel us to be nicer rather than meaner? I guess that's
on social media specifically.
Yes, on social media.
Yeah, we know that the attitude that we have when we approach social media influences how we feel about it. So one thing that makes us be kinder on social spaces is if we are approaching it with an attitude of kindness instead of when we're depressed or down or scared. So that's one huge factor in how we interact on social media. But another thing is just recognizing that this gives us the ability to see the whole world in ways we didn't get to see before. That's why we study the humanities, is to see how different humans have answered questions over the years. In different ways and in similar ways. Now we don't have gatekeepers through digital media. We get to hear from firsthand accounts of various ways of looking at the world. Sometimes it's negative, but a lot of times it's positive, and we can see our universality of human experience, that happy people are happy, sad people are sad. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what your background is. We grieve in similar ways. We are joyous in similar ways. And I think social media really, if we approach it with that attitude of learning and openness, that's how we can really be kind to each other.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for your time. The book is Digital Kindness. It's on Amazon. It can be found most places. I encourage everyone out there to get a copy. Now is a great time. You need to be able to read a new book while we're in quarantine and while we're at home. Lauren's is a great book to read. It will make us put a big old smile on our face. Lauren Hug, thank you very much, attorney, author. Thank you for being on History Repeating. So right now, we're going to shift it over to our musical guest, Sir Tom Jones.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more.
Oh woman, don't you treat me so mean. You're the meanest old woman that I ever seen. I guess if you say so, I got to pack my things and go.
That's right, hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
Oh baby, don't you treat me this way. You gotta get back on my feet someday.
So I got to buy my things and go. That's right, hit the road, Jack. Yeah. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
Oh woman, don't you treat me so mean.
You're the meanest old man that I've ever seen.
I guess if you say so, you better pack your things and go.
That's right, hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hey. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more. Don't you come back no more.
Don't be so mean.
Come back no more.
That's cold-blooded.
Come back no more.
Are you sure about that?
Come back no more.
I'm not getting this.
Come back no more.
Hey!
Don't you come back no more.
Well.
Don't you come back no more. Don't you come back no more.
Huh. I'm already done.
All right, what a great performance by Sir Tom Jones. And I'm going to put my email address on the bottom of the screen right here. I want you to email me. Why did I choose that song? What does that song have to do with the show today? So make sure you email me below. You can see it on the bottom of the screen. joseph.murray@jmsdk12.org. And we'll be right back. You can keep it rolling. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed our very first episode of History Repeating. And I am your host, Joe Murray. Stay tuned for next week, when we'll have another great episode. My mama will be back. Intern Chris will be back. I'm sure we'll get the singing school board member back. And we'll be even more guests and new activities. And yes, our goal is to make sure Intern Chris gets dunked. Join us next week. Have a great day.